I'm here today with Lily Hirsch. I've known Lily for something like 10 years. And Lily's an incredible writer who's got this great body of work that spans um, into pop culture. And as we kind of look at her books here, we can scroll down and see that she sort of started a lot of her writing career from an academic musicological standpoint. And it's just been a fascinating arc to watch along the way. We met because I was fresh out of grad school, at a new academic job, and I was looking for fellow folks in the broad musicology world. And in Bakersfield, being a big but small town, our paths crossed and we connected, and then our families have become friends and all these things. So she's awesome, and I'm really excited to chat today just about her work and the arc of her career and also her writing practices and things like that. So, hi, Lily.
Hi, that was a very nice introduction.
Oh,
And
yeah, I
thank you so
practiced
much
it.
for, yeah, really? I was
Yeah.
that was very impressive. It seemed practice.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm curious to chat with you about the things I was just talking about your research interests and how that's sort of changed over time, and also your writing practices. I want to start with your writing practices and approaches to writing. I've always been deeply impressed with your creative output. And also, somewhere in there, there must be a pretty disciplined situation happening for you to just crank out the amount of writing you do. And I feel like writing, maybe you can speak to this more, but I feel like in the past we've talked that for some, writing seems to be a torturous affair.
Yeah.
And I feel like from you, it seems like a joy or something. So maybe you can talk
Yeah.
about your relationship with like the actual practice of writing and what that's like.
Well, that's a good question, and I'm not quite sure why I am the way I am. This is a tough one. But I do really enjoy writing. I like the whole process. I especially like when I'm in a project. Sometimes finding a project can be tricky, finding inspiration, and I feel like that term gets so overused. And I am writing nonfiction, so the level of creativity is maybe different. So maybe inspiration is the wrong term, but finding the topic that really gets me excited.
Yeah, finding like
Sometimes,
the object. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that sometimes takes a little bit. But once I've got that and I'm involved in a project, I am happy as a clam. And I think I've thought a little bit about why that is, because I have met and talked with plenty of writers and plenty of academics who are supposed to be producing writing. That's their whole thing, but they really don't enjoy the process. I think for me, I find it almost meditative. Everything else kind of falls away. When I'm writing, I can't be worrying about the world or what political leadership is doing, or, so it's almost a form of therapy. And I'm not good at true meditation where you can just purge your mind and kind of be in this state where you think about nothing. I've never been able to do that. So having something to focus on is meditative for me. And so writing is that. And there's the whole process of writing the puzzle, fitting together these sentences in just the right way. And there's something almost musical to me, having how the sentences sound together, how it rolls. Is
Mm-hmm.
is that the right word? I that whole process, the puzzle of that, the musicality of that, and just not having to think about greater worries, I
Yeah.
love.
I never thought about that, but like the musicality of a sentence,
Hmm.
like I'm aware of that concept, but do you feel like you're training and because you have like academic training, like you went to grad school for musicology and you were, I assume, not only reading articles and books about music history and things like this. I guess a question is this: like you're studying in your musicology degree. You can talk more about this, but you were really reading. You weren't studying scores so much, right? It wasn't a doctorate in. It wasn't a DMA. You weren't a piano performance major or anything, right? Is that correct?
Right. There was both,
Oh,
though. I mean, there
both.
was
Okay.
absolutely a lot of reading. And I took courses in like the English department and anthropology departments and other departments outside of music where it was German studies, where it was
Mm.
very reading heavy.
Hmm.
But then I also had analysis courses in
Okay.
the music department
Do
and
you feel like a
all
light
that.
bulb ever went off? I remember a light bulb slowly going off for me when I was in grad school that like academic writing and reading can be fun, but it's mostly
Yeah.
not or something. Meaning like the
Yeah.
norm of those days at least was the text was very often dry and kind of like
Yeah.
dense writing.
Yeah.
Do you remember a time in your studies way back as a student where you had glimmers of like, I like this writer? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one too. Yeah, because a lot of it was very dry, but then when you came across something that was a little juicier and
yeah,
more accessible,
right.
I think I was so self-conscious and young in
Yeah,
graduate school that I often thought if I was not getting a text that it was somehow my fault. So I didn't always
totally.
evaluate writing kind of based on what I thought or how I felt. But I have since come to realize that the texts that I really responded to, it was okay that they were the more accessible texts or the texts that were kind of interesting, full of metaphor or just interesting wordings or I really loved the texts that were very broad, that brought in a lot of different ideas.
Disciplines. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, yes,
Mhm.
very interdisciplinary or made broad comparisons or made me think of something in a wholly new way by
Mhm.
bringing in some different perspective.
Who are some
So
writers that pop to mind from that era, at least?
My advisor, Brian Gilliam at Duke, he was very good bringing in lots of different political ideas, religion, and
Hmm.
he was good, but he was also dense with music and music analysis. He was good. I remember them asking what kind of musicologist I wanted to emulate during my master's exam, and the writer I cited is an interesting one now, and now there's political problems with this fellow. But at the time I said Leon Botstein.
Okay.
Uh,
And what's Leon Bodstein's? I actually don't really know his work or
oh,
what's his
he's now
folklore
on,
like.
he's connected to the Epstein
Oh,
stuff now,
geez.
which is,
Okay.
I know, sucks.
Okay. Yeah.
But back then he was the editor of Musical Quarterly, and
Okay.
he would always have an article up front, and it would always be very broad, lots of ideas in a short period. And I found the writing very accessible.
Mm.
I like Bob Fink. Bob Fink's another one, lots of
Yeah.
ideas. You've got the music analysis, but then there's lots of different ways that he's looking at things.
That Repeating Ourselves book was like a big greatest hit for me in grad school. I remember because it was
Yeah,
the same. The idea was so brilliant,
yeah,
and it was he was crossing so many boundaries with this like deep
yes.
argument, but it felt pop culture-ish in a weird way. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked writers like that. I've always liked writers like that, and I have now come to realize that when I get my hands on a book that's very dense, it is not speaking to me. It's not accessible. I now think it doesn't. This was a choice on this writer's part. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
this way.
That's
It's
right.
sometimes it almost seems like gatekeeping to me, just
That's right.
unnecessary. So
Hmm.
I've really come full circle on that, where
Yeah.
I used to
It's
blame
not your fault.
myself.
It's not your fault. Yeah. Right.
Yes, I don't completely think it's my fault anymore. I think this is a choice that did not always need to happen.
Yeah. That's
So,
interesting. Huh.
yeah,
So, I mean, I brought that up because you brought up the idea of sentences maybe feeling musical. When you are
yeah.
writing, are you to get like very micro about it? When you're writing, you're in the flow of writing and you might write a paragraph. Are you editing as you write? Like, are you stopping after that paragraph, reading it back and
It
saying it out loud even? Or are you writing pages and pages and then doing a full edit?
it really
Okay.
depends on my mood and where I'm at. If I'm flowing, sometimes I can get a lot down at once and then come back and edit. Um,
Yeah.
but sometimes I do go over a paragraph over and over. I do really think the bulk of my writing is editing.
Yeah.
Whatever I first get down on the page is not it. That's
Yeah.
not what it's going to be. And sometimes I do have to just throw down the ideas or throw down the citations or whatever I need to have there, and it's going to be messy and ugly. I just need to get it down, and then I come back, and
Hmm.
then the writing gets involved. I've
That
actually,
seems. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, no, I've been writing a lot of these short pieces lately, these humor pieces, which
Hmm.
is a weird thing that I've gotten into. I think it's related to having written the book about Weird Al
Hmm.
and having written about just funny music generally. I started to think, if I'm going to be writing about jokes, I wonder how one does that. And during the pandemic, I really found I loved humor and I needed humor.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
started writing, and now I've found that I'm addicted to writing these little humor pieces. I do it
That's
all the time.
cool. Hmm.
But part of it is the writing exercise. They're very short. It's just about a page. And you really need it to flow and kind of sing. And but like it's a real microcosm for me and really getting each word right and the rhythm right
Hmm.
in a way that is different than with with other books where I really need certain information. Here I can make choices just about how it sounds and how it flows, and I read it out loud. I actually read out aloud everything. Everything
Okay.
gets read aloud at some point because
Yeah.
then you can really catch if it's not flowing or there's a weird word choice
Yeah.
or something.
There's something I've never thought about this, but like joke writers, it's almost this funny trajectory of like the 400-page academic book and the joke writer. It's kind of like you can get, they're both, what am I trying to say? They're both as complex as you want to look at them to be, meaning like the person who literally writes a great joke for a comedian, right? Like a punchline and like a setup and a punchline, and it could be very short. The amount of attention to detail and the craft, I guess that's what I'm saying. The
Yeah,
craft is just as high, in my view, on a
yeah.
short piece versus the, you know,
I think so. And
long
one
piece or
word
whatever.
can ruin that joke. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
right.
trying to say I'm an
That's right.
expert on this or
No, but it's a
I'm
beautiful
addicted to it.
craft. Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
like doing it. I really appreciate when it's done well. I
Yeah.
love the comedian John Mulaney because
Oh, yeah.
his
Yeah.
word choices are
That's right.
very fascinating and he won't
Hmm.
repeat words. He'll find another alteration, which is something we do too, in all writing.
Yeah.
If it's really repetitive and you're using the same words over and over, it really takes something away.
You can tell he loves language. I loved
Yes,
that show. Did you watch the LA show he did? Where it was like,
yes, yeah, the talk show.
first of all, just the setup of that time and the fact that it
Yeah,
was live on Netflix, and it was like, I remember being like, whoa, I actually want to tune in live. What time? 7? Like, I didn't want to see
yeah.
the archive. But you can tell he loves language. I wonder with comedians, does he have joke writers? Do all famous comedians have joke writers?
Well, that talk show did, and he mentioned the writers' rooms.
Okay.
I don't know how, like for his stand-up specials, I would assume he's writing it
It's
all, but
just
I don't
him.
know.
Yeah. That's always, I remember being like baffled when I heard that comedians had joke writers.
Yeah,
And I think some are just like, I write all my own material,
right.
and it's very similar to pop music, right? Where it's like almost
Yeah,
more common for a pop star to have a bunch of writers versus write all
yeah.
their own material. Um, but yeah, John Mulaney, I love comedians where you can tell they love language, I guess,
Yes, you can really tell
George
with him.
Carlin, like
Yeah,
Richard Pryor, like they love words.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I agree. You can really tell with him, and and he was a writer for Saturday Night Live. You know, he's a writer.
Hmm.
And I sometimes find inspiration in his work and co comedy in general, just because each word matters so much. It can just ruin the joke. It can ruin the point.
Hmm.
I don't always think it matters as much with academic writing, but it's certainly better if you think about it that way. Your writing is better if you think about each word.
I think that's a good point because you're right to say if you're reading a dense book or article, it was a choice.
Yeah.
And so like it's like it could have sung. Mitchell Morris is
Yeah.
another person that came to mind. He wrote a great book called something Sentiment. Do you remember this book he wrote? Like Mood and Sentiment. And he had a
Yeah.
chapter on Karen Carpenter.
Yeah.
Um anyway, he sings when he writes. His topics are incredibly interesting, but
Yeah.
also he's like a great writer, almost biographical
Yeah.
musicology in a way too.
Yeah, there are
Interesting.
some good writers that write about music too from outside of music,
Mm.
from English departments, and Emily Lordy's one.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
yeah, so and you see that these people have real skills as
It's
writers, and
actually,
it's a different approach.
yeah, you're also making me think that something I come up against as a musician a lot is I'll talk to fellow musicians and we'll realize that some of the coolest music that's ever been made or some of the coolest bands are art school students.
Yeah.
Like Brian Eno and Talking Heads and these types of people, they all went to art school. They didn't go to music
Yeah.
school. And then the list is quite short. Maybe not as much recently, but in the history of pop music, the list is a little bit shorter of music majors that tapped in. And the analog is almost true with academics, like musicology
Hmm.
people writing. Oftentimes it's the people outside of that discipline who write about music, and they can shuttle in a cool perspective that's like goes down
Yes.
easier than the music student who's all caught up in their issues, or something.
No, absolutely. And I don't know if it's a threat to say that, it's a threat to me as a musicologist. But let's be honest. Yeah, there's great, amazing perspectives from people that are not musicologists and some of the better writing, honestly. And maybe it is partly that we are bogged down because of graduate school where we've got to somehow get Foucault in there or something,
Yeah,
some
that's right.
pressure.
That's right. Well, that's why
These
I'm impressed with your arc. Like, let's talk a little bit about your arc because I think your book on music and American crime prevention and punishment, when did that come out? Do you roughly?
Gosh, when was it? Can we click on it?
I'll just
I
click. Oh
should
yeah,
know this. I think
I'll
it's
just
2010. 2010, is that right?
2010ish. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh yes, 2012, 2010,
Oops. Yeah,
that type of thing.
2012.
So I think that had come out let me go back here. Shortly before I met you, basically.
Yes.
And I feel like maybe this isn't true, but I feel like your your transition, it was big, obviously, because you left academia and all these other things. But I do remember having some cool conversations with you about your sort of leap, maybe from that more academic world
Yeah.
into the pop world, and that's when you wrote your Weird Al book.
Hmm.
Um, Talk about that decision and maybe some of the things you had to grapple with as you because I respect the idea that you almost reinvented yourself as a writer, and I don't think people can do that very well or very often. I think some
Yeah.
people start as a certain thing, especially in the like concrete track of academia. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to get out of it, obviously. But talk about that switch for
Yeah, it
yourself.
was quite a switch. Sometimes I think there is a connection because my first book, I was focused on the negotiation of Jewish music during the Nazi era. Pretty
Hmm.
heavy topic, but it did deal with kind of the messiness of categories. So I saw that as related when I all of a sudden made this jump to music and crime prevention, because here I was actually looking at the category of music and saying this was something I was taught as a good, a noble good. Music is sublime, but here it's being used in a lot of negative ways. So
Yeah.
I was playing with the category, and that book is a completely different topic, but it is still pretty academic. And that I was also finishing that book just as I was having my first child, and I left my tenure track position and maybe went through something of an identity crisis. What am I doing now? Because my path had always been this tenure track situation.
Yeah.
I think I was rethinking academia and what that means, how I value myself, how I value music, everything. And I was looking specifically again at categories, but categories that are dismissed. So because I guess maybe I felt dismissed at that time. I was thinking of humorous music, and when I was in graduate school, we were focused on serious, quote unquote, serious music. So I liked the idea of writing about humorous music because I thought it was something that was dismissed. But as I suspected, it didn't take a lot of detective work here. There's a lot of depth in humorous music. So that
Yeah.
was my kind of guiding principle. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to write about funny music, I want to do this. This is kind of, I almost like an axe to grind.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I, I had this in me that I just wanted to kind of I don't know, take on academia, I guess, or traditions of academia.
Yeah, like
Um,
smash a certain narrative with a hammer or something.
yes, that's what was happening. And I thought,
Yeah,
okay, so if I'm going
right.
to do that, who do I focus on? And Weird Al to me seemed the most obvious. He's who you think of. He's who
Yeah.
I thought of
He's like the
first.
well, he's like the yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had really never I am not an was not at all studied in that area of popular music. I was so focused on classical music, and even as a high schooler, I was a singer. I was in choirs. I played the piano. I was listening to classical music. I was really not a pop music person, but I thought I would just take all of this on, and I did the deep dive of all deep dives, and I got an interview with Weird Al. So that was huge.
That's big.
Yes, once I got that interview, I was like, okay, game on. And I have to say that was probably the most fun I've ever had on a project. That
Yeah.
those years working on that project, having met Weird Al,
Mm.
I had a kid in kindergarten who loved Weird Al. It was so
Perfect
much
timing.
fun. It was
Yeah.
perfect timing in my
Yeah.
life. So I just had a tremendous time working on that project, and Weird Al turned out to be the best example for what I was trying to do because he's such a smart guy and the
Yeah.
way he thinks about music is so deep and the musicians he's involved with are such amazing, serious musicians.
Right.
So that was a ton of fun. And at
He
that
takes
time,
humor seriously.
yes, it was
Yeah.
just perfect. So I that project was amazing. And that was also the time when I really was trying to pull out of what I had been taught as an academic writer. I was trying to write in a different way with that book.
Mm.
That more accessible, more lively, really thinking if someone's going to read this, I would like them to want to read this. I hope this isn't just a forced text.
Mm.
Like, how the first two books, university presses, who's reading those books? I mean, people are probably picking it up because they're in graduate school or something, and they're working on a project, and they're maybe going to the index to try to find what they need. I
Right.
can't imagine people are flipping through that book, reading it cover to cover with great anticipation,
Yeah, it's a
sadly.
forced, you're right. It's sad, but research texts are often forced text. It's like
Yes.
I got a job to do and I got to tear through this to get what I want, basically, or something.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. So I kind of started to think, how do you write so a person might actually want to read this?
Yeah,
So I got to add jokes for the first time.
that's
There was a
cool.
wonderful editor that really kind of encouraged me to add some puns, which
Yeah,
I
that's
found that
cool.
I loved and
Love.
maybe I
Yeah.
was born to do.
Yeah. Have we talked about what's the name of the pun documentary? Do you know? Am I
Is there a
missing?
pun documentary that I have missed? What have I been doing with my life?
Let me like, I'm gonna give this 5 seconds of time. Um, there's probably a ton of, okay, I'm like, mm, we'll talk offline about it. It's not coming up quick and I'm
Okay.
not gonna go down the rabbit hole. There
Okay.
is a
Yeah.
documentary about the art of the pun and like maybe even pun competitions or something.
Oh my gosh,
So,
that's amazing.
but I'll leave that to you to find. So that's cool. So after that Weird Al book, I'm going to come back to your page. You've had just a great run of things you've gotten interested. Can't Stop the Girls.
Yes.
You want to talk about that project a little?
Yes, so that was the next one, and I was still thinking, how to write in a more accessible way with this one. And I worked with the same editor that I had worked on with the Weird Al book. So these two books are not with academic presses. And I also wanted to maybe find a way to entice people to buy it. I think having Weird Al involved with the Weird Al book, I don't think I know it really helped. People were, it's very nice they wanted to read anything I wrote, but having Weird Al's words there, an interview from Weird Al certainly helped. So I was kind of thinking along those lines, and I've got this beautiful foreword written by Michelle Cello, and
Yeah.
honestly, her writing is incredible. I just skip everything I wrote and read her foreword. It's
Yeah.
so
Wow.
beautiful and
Cool.
lyrical and musical.
Hmm.
I also have an afterword from Amy Ray of the Indigo Girls, who I
Cool.
I dream of writing more about the Indigo Girls because I love them so much. So
Yeah.
that was amazing. But that book, I got very angry when I was writing that book. just getting sick of some of the prejudices you see over and over
Mm,
around women in music. And I just kind of, this was like a cry of despair, this book.
mm,
And I
mm.
kind of deep dived every negative label I could think of and how it's affected all of these different musicians. And you just see them repeat. I kind of felt like one of those detectives following a serial killer, and you're like looking at all the connections between the words.
Yeah, the yarn in
Yes,
the
the
office.
yarn.
Yeah.
That's what was, I was really deep into this one and
Mm.
kind of getting very, very angry. I was mean to my husband during this period. Just he couldn't. Anyways,
Smashing
uh,
dishes in the kitchen on a regular
yes,
basis, right?
yes, this was, yeah, this
But
was,
it seems like another thread of like being really interested in labels, right? Like
yes,
this seems like a
absolutely.
through
Words.
line for you. Yeah.
Yeah, categories, labels,
Hmm.
words. You're right. It comes up over and over. So I have changed as a writer and my style has certainly changed, but there is kind of a through line with my interest, even though it seems like I'm all over the place. Like
No,
I've
that's
joked now that my resume kind of looks like a joke without a punchline. You know, someone that started out with music during the Nazi era and then Weird Al,
I
Angela Lansbury.
I don't know. Like I do think laughter and I mean, there's smarter people that have written about this probably, and this will actually be an interesting thing to go deeper on. I want to read a book about the line between horror and laughter,
Yeah,
right? Or the fact that you're bringing up Nazi Germany and funny music. Like I've always felt intuitively, based on just a very deep gut spiritual feeling almost, that the darkest human impulses and behavior are right around the corner from jokes, right?
absolutely. And there
What am
are
I?
writers that
Yeah,
have talked about that, how it's such a thin line because it's a left turn there. It's all this incongruity left
right,
turn. And if it's something scary,
right,
it's just the setting. There's just these few little
right.
things that define it as threatening or not. If it's threatening, then you're in horror. If it's not threatening, then it can be humor.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
you know, a clown is horrifying, you know, on like a unlit road.
In the
Uh,
context, yeah, right,
yes,
right.
but then in you know, slipping on a banana peel, it's something else.
Hmm.
When you know, a clown all of a sudden appears.
I've had a
Um,
feeling. What's your relationship with horror movies? I'm gonna guess that you don't watch them at all,
I
but
hate,
that's
yeah, I hate them. I appreciate though. I've heard people talk about horror movies and directors talk about it, and they do talk about it kind of like humor,
yeah.
these sort of
Well,
left turns.
and have you heard interview? I've heard interviews with directors or film critics where they think certain movies are absolutely hilarious
Yeah,
because they're reading it. They're reading this gore fest or they're reading this deeply
yeah,
disturbing movie as absolutely hilarious. And I felt compelled to want to try to engage with horror movies
yes,
from that lens, but you have to like like work yourself up to be like, I'm about to
yeah.
watch a funny movie or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yes, I think, you know, I think the world is hard enough.
Yeah,
And maybe from all that early time working on music during the Nazi era, I just don't have the stomach for unnecessary
to
gore.
subject your yeah, and
Yes.
that's the same for me. Like I watched, do you know Ari Aster?
Yes?
Okay, so I will say, do you know the movie Eddington?
No.
Oh, you should watch. Okay, so
Okay.
first of all, he's ostensibly a horror filmmaker a bit because he made like which I haven't even seen. He has some pretty well-known horror movie. They're in Sweden, and do you know about this? If I
No.
said the title anyway, there's that. But then he did Beau is Afraid with Joaquin
Okay.
Phoenix, maybe. Anyway, long story short, he makes these pretty crazy movies, and in many ways, people would call him a horror filmmaker. But he did Eddington, which was it's essentially a pandemic movie, and it's there's a lot of brutality in it, and there's all these other things, and there's very much the argument: why would I ever want to watch a movie about the COVID pandemic? You know, like
Yeah.
people fighting about masking up. But that is the one cinematic or artistic experience I've had in recent years where I was watching a difficult movie, but I was able, for some reason, the way he did it, to look at it like a not just a comedy, but he was smart because he said the whole movie was actually about a data center being built,
Okay.
meaning like there was this huge human drama that unfolded across the time of the movie, but it started and ended with like plans to build a data center and then the data center being built. And it was like terror along the way, human carnage and all this crazy
Oh
stuff,
my gosh.
but it was almost like this is a film about a data center, and if and it
Yeah.
weirdly tracks because data centers are like are violence to humanity, you could argue. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
I see it.
anyway, whatever. That's a tangent, but it speaks to, I think, but it was also kind of a funny movie,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I'll try it. I
Anyway,
do see that there's potential because the line is so thin between horror and humor. You
yeah,
do see there's potential to have fun with the horror. The closest I've gotten,
yeah.
and I don't know if it really counts as a horror movie, but it's Shaun of the Dead.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That one.
That's also a great example, actually. Yeah, where it's
That's
it's like hilarious, but definitely gory at times, right? Like,
yes. But
yeah.
it's hilarious enough that I really that's a comedy. I love that movie.
I also think that watching horror films as parents of children, maybe
Yeah.
that's part of it too. Like I just can't, you're kind of
Yeah.
exhausted at the end of the day. And it's sort of like, am I gonna sign up for like this before
Yeah.
going to sleep? Like, no thanks.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's so many things to worry about as a parent and a person. I don't need to invite new things to worry
More
about that I
worry.
wasn't thinking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
no, I don't.
That's right.
But I do see also like that it's not only the connection between that left turn and the incongruity
Mm,
that can make both horror and humor, but there are also lots of examples of really horrific periods in time or people facing terrible things that then looked to humor. Like, so I didn't even think of it at the time, but music during the Nazi era,
mm,
there are some amazing examples of humor in the Holocaust.
mm.
So that's another connection between the two topics. So
Have you thought much, because you've had an interest in Jewish studies on and off, like, or like with Jewish music at least, have you thought particularly about Jewish humor traditions and wanting to engage with certain, I don't know, certain eras of that? Because it does seem like, I mean, like you just said, almost, it seems like since the Jewish experience in the last century has been what it is, that people do talk about sort of Jewish humor as a very beautiful and particular brand of
yeah,
humor. Do you have, I don't know, does that
yeah.
interest you to like look at that as a tradition? Or I don't even know if that would be the right word to use, but
Well, I've always liked kind of showing the messiness of any category. So hearing the
yeah,
term Jewish humor, I
yeah,
automatically want to talk about how messy that term is.
yeah.
I think I had kind of gotten away from that focus on Jewish music, Jewish studies, and was, focusing on humor. So I didn't think of it in that lens. It would be interesting to do now a topic connected to that. I almost got to with Weird Al just because so many people think Weird Al's Jewish, but he's not. So there's
Mm,
a little bit in the book about why people think he's Jewish.
mm,
So I got to touch a bit on kind of Jewish musical humorous traditions and the connections to Weird Al.
yeah,
Um, but I
yeah.
haven't as much recently, and right now, or at least in the last year, I have felt I haven't been sure how to take on Jewish topics just because, there was this amazing period w where it was kind of cool to be Jewish. And we are well past that.
Well,
And now it seems, I'm laughing, but that's not the right response, although people
no,
do that in uncomfortable situations, funerals, etc.
yeah.
Um,
But we're
but
living in a pretty horrendous time.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really complicated to be Jewish right now, and especially around Israel, this automatic assumption that if you're Jewish, you might be Zionist or pro-Israel, when that's not necessarily the case, but you're getting grouped in these very simplistic ways, and it felt dangerous to talk about
Mm,
my Jewishness or my
mhm.
relationship to all of that. And, I'm a complicated Jew in that I'm not practicing and, I feel some cultural connection, except I'm a messy Jew,
It's a
I
big
guess.
topic. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't really known how to navigate it right now, just because the initial reaction is it feels so volatile, in
Mm,
this moment.
hmm. That makes sense. Did
Yeah.
you, with your Angela Lansbury project, Did you come at that as sort of a fan first in a way?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I'm always a fan. Oftentimes people like write about musical topics because they love that music. And
Right.
I've always written about musical topics that I'm interested in that are complicated. It's not, I love this music. That's never been me.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't even know, yeah, I am a fan now of Weird Al, but I didn't come into that topic as a fan. I've become a
Smart,
fan through the
probably, by the
topic.
way, because it's no fun to read books by super fans often, right? Where it's just like
Really? Okay.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like I've read books by super fans of whoever, and it often just feels like a big, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it can devolve into something of just like
No,
fandom
that's true.
for
It's true. And it
300
is actually
pages.
fun reading a book. That's true. And one of, we were talking about good writing. Who is it? Is it Carl Wilson? Is that the name?
Oh, he's a great writer. Yeah, like the
Yeah,
Celine Dion book he wrote. That's
yes.
one of
And
my
that was so
favorites.
great. So he's
Yes.
talking about his
Yes.
attitudes towards Celine Dion. He didn't
Oh,
come into
it's
that as
great.
a fan. That was a great book.
But he weirdly became a fan through the
I
process, which
love
was
it.
incredible. Yeah.
Yes, that was a great one. That makes me want to write a book about Kenny G
That's
and
classic.
a million
Oh,
other topics. Would be so fun.
there's a great book. Yeah.
But the Angela Lansbury one, I did come in as a fan. I was actually thinking about doing a project after the Can't Stop the Girls book about some of the musicians involved with the Lilith Fair, and
Hmm.
I felt like that area was kind of crowded. There were a lot of who I thought were very cool pop music critics involved, and for some reason, it made me feel like a very not cool academic musicologist. And I went on this run and I remember thinking, well, who am I? What would I write about if I'm not the cool pop music critic that can write about these, Joan Jett and these ladies that I think are so cool? And this is a very silly experiment. And I know that these labels like cool and nerd are dumb, especially after writing about Weird Al, and being a nerd is cool, being uncool is cool, all that. But
Yeah.
I went on this run and I just thought of who am I as a person? And I'm a person who watched Murder, She Wrote as a junior high kid.
Yeah.
I was listening to classical music and watching Murder, She Wrote. I've kind of been like old before my time my whole life.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say those are pretty wild tendencies as a seventh grader. You weren't smoking
exactly.
cigarettes in the alley. Yeah.
No, I was eating grape nuts because grape nuts are delicious. Like, yeah, I was turning assignments in early. I'm that person. I
I
turn
love
in
it.
assignments early. Yeah, so I just thought of who is someone like that, what would they write about? And I just thought, well, I'll write about Murder, She Wrote.
That's
So I
great.
started that project and it turned out to be a ton of fun. I got to go to this Murder, She Wrote festival in May. I don't know if you saw anything
I
about
did see
this.
you post. What was that like? Were there fellow writers and fans and all sorts at that festival?
There was another writer who writes about Agatha Christie there.
Okay.
But otherwise,
Those two feel like for some reason I was gonna say Agatha Christie and Murder She Wrote and Angela Lansbury. It feels like this
there's some
of the
overlap.
same cloth. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
some overlap. And I was there, and then there were a ton of fans. There was this wonderful man named Tim Benzie who does a show where you solve a Murder, She Wrote episode together with the audience. He dresses up like her
Whoa.
and leads the audience and
Awesome.
points out silly things about the show, like how everyone's always handling evidence without gloves, fun things about the show. So he was there and he had his show. And it was just the most delightful fun and a real lesson in being as weird and uncool as you want to be and how great it is to be in that community. I
That's
had
great.
never had a viral experience, but I
Mm.
took a video of this Jessica jog they had where a bunch of the participants dressed like Jessica Fletcher in the opening credits of Murder, She Wrote and jogged in these gray jogging suits. And you could just hear how much fun everyone was having.
Wow.
So I posted this silly video and I struggle on social media. As a writer, you're supposed to have a platform and
That's the
have a
second
presence on social
job.
media.
That's like it feels like maybe that's the main job of a writer now, right? It's
I
like this the
know.
book is secondary, social media
Yes.
is the primary goal.
Yes, and it really helps. I've had projects shot down recently because I don't have enough of a platform
Wow.
online. So it's very frustrating.
But did that
And
video take off?
that video took off
That's
like
cool.
over 2 million views, and I was getting
Nice.
calls, and it was this crazy experience. But it was so much fun because I've heard that viral experiences can be quite negative, but
Yeah.
this one was so positive because it was just about this joy. Everyone just
Pure
loved the
joy.
joy.
Pure
Yes.
joy. Yeah.
Yes. So that turned out that Angela Lansbury project leading me to all of that. It was a lot of fun.
Do you read or you must be thinking if you're I mean, I'm just thinking for a second that there's a specific kind of fandom that goes along with folks like Weird Al and phenomena like Murder She Wrote
Yeah.
or Agatha Christie. It's like, I mean, deep fandom can go in all directions, obviously, but
Yeah.
popping into these subcultures and thinking
Yeah.
about and like taking the temperature of these hardcore
Yeah.
fan, fans, is fandom something that's rolling around in your brain
It definitely
a
is.
lot?
It
Yeah.
definitely is. And it's interesting. I have been thinking about how do you choose a project that connects you to a wonderful fandom? Because, and
Yeah,
this is just pure
that's cool.
selfishness because
Yeah.
it's
Those are
been
the
so
people you want to
fun.
go be around in a way, right?
Yes.
Like,
And
yeah,
the Weird Al fans in general, I mean, I'm sure there are some that are
sure, sure, sure.
not
Yeah.
great. I haven't met any. The ones I've met have been
Yeah.
wonderful. And during that book came out during COVID, and I was on these different Weird Al podcasts,
Yeah.
having so much fun
That's
talking
so
with these
cool.
people. It was life-saving at
That's
that time.
so
It was
cool.
just so uplifting. And those fans were a lot of the fans are breeders and they're smart and they've sent me, they
Mm.
find typos and they find grammatical errors.
Mm.
I would hire them all as my editors. So yeah, I have been thinking, how do you connect to these wonderful fandoms? The Murder She Wrote fandom is another fun one. It's very multi-generational. Lots of people came with their mothers. It was very sweet right before Mother's Day. So I have
That's
been thinking, how do you, because surely not everyone has such wonderful fans. So how can I be a part of projects with those types of fans? Or did I exhaust it? Is that it? Murder, She Wrote, and Weird Al, are those the best fans
I
and I'm
think there's
done?
more. I think there's more out there.
I hope
Have you
so.
checked this book out? I remember coming across it when I was in grad school. Do you know this thinker, sociologist,
Subculture,
Dana Barbara?
yeah.
And he wrote this kind of, I think this is sort of uh, a text that had an impact. And again, I don't really know how it's aged, and I know it also came out when it came. I mean, it came out in 1979, actually. But when we were
Wow.
just talking about this, it'd be interesting to sort of look at this as I don't know, in connection. It's not about fandom per se, but he just popped into my mind anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Subcultures, fandom, style, all of these things. I've been
Yeah,
thinking about this. They have like a Renaissance fair by the lake by our house in a few months, I think. And we would go to a Renaissance fair by my house in San Diego when I was little. And it was like such a wild, I didn't dress up or I wasn't deep in it, but we would go, and
yeah,
go get like some food and walk around and like all these people were dressed up and they had like swords and like all these things and like as I get older I think of deep fandom as such a beautiful thing because it
yeah,
feels like a I don't know if you feel this way. It feels like a public expression of somebody's deep desire for
yeah,
connection and escape. You're sort
yeah,
of admitting if you're at the Renaissance fair dressed up, you're sort of publicly saying it matters to me to leave. I don't know if
yeah,
it's negative, you know what I mean? To leave this world and go back in time, or leave this world and
yeah,
go to a TV show and like it just become a different person for at least a
yeah,
moment or something. Like it's a beautiful
yeah.
kind of escapism
I
and
agree. And
an
it's a really
expression.
quick
Yeah,
way to find your people, other people
there you
that
go.
value
Yeah,
those same
these are my
things.
values.
Yes. And
Exactly.
I'm just going to be me. There's something really beautiful about just coming and not being embarrassed, that you're
Mm-hmm.
wearing whatever. You're just,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be me. And then it's so easy to find other people that are just happily embracing themselves. And then they're going to embrace you because you're happily embracing yourself and you've got this common ground. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's quite a wonderful thing.
See, I
Should we
think
go
you're
to
touching.
Renaissance Fair?
Yeah, I know. Let's all dress up.
Yeah.
I think you're touching on what I really appreciate about your work is you do have such a cool. You're kind of laying out. I'm often thinking these days about what we're like showing our. I mean, part of being a parent is you are telling your kids something, but then you're also showing them what matters to you. And it's
Yeah.
always incongruous a little bit, right? It's like phones are dumb, and then you pick up your phone or whatever. But
Yeah.
but you're showing. I think you're like the arc of your career as a writer is such a cool, inspiring, and interesting trajectory because you're
Hmm.
kind of showing us what matters to you. And like I
That
said,
was,
you're sort of showing us that it's okay to move in the direction you're interested in, even though you were sort of in this serious academic mold, which implicitly is probably telling us, like, this is what matters. This is serious. You can't leave. Stay
yeah.
here. It's sort of implicitly like handcuffs a little bit or something. And you've kind of broken free and you're on this incredible run of creativity. I'm so impressed by
That is
your
so
trajectory.
nice.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is the nicest thing I think anyone's ever said to me. Plus, you added in the word cool, which no one has ever accused
It's
me of
very
being.
cool. Yeah, you've been
S-
accused now.
So that
Sorry.
was
Yeah.
that was really
Yeah,
nice. I
it's
didn't even
great.
think of it that way. I really just been indulging these interests, but
Yeah.
that I guess
But
it
your like
is.
actions, I guess that's what I'm kind of saying. That's almost like you can meet folks, or like I think about this a lot with creativity now where people can talk about what matters to them or what, but it's almost just like, well, let me just see what you make.
Yeah,
And then I
that's
find
true.
out, and then basically find out what you actually care about. Like you can meet writers or musicians or artists or painters or blah, 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 and they could talk your ear off about what they care about. And then you just need to look at their work and find out what they actually care about,
Yeah.
And I can
I
see
love
it
that. That's a
clearly.
really nice way of looking at it. It is kind of like yeah, like I'm having my own little Renaissance fair in how I write. I'm indulging. I'm wearing
Yeah.
the outfits. This is who I am. I like that. Well, I wonder what the next one's going to say. I haven't really put it on social media yet, but I know I talked to you about
Mhm.
the next project, this single series book with Duke University Press that's out for review right now, but
Yeah. What
on
can you talk about that a little bit? I know it's out for review, but say whatever you
Yeah,
want about
I
that.
can optimistically talk about it and
Yeah.
hoping that it doesn't go south in review. And I'm really deep in the writing of it. So even if something happens there, I'll put it out somehow.
Hmm.
So I'm in deep on this project about Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up and the Rickroll
Yes.
phenomenon.
Yeah.
I'm in so deep. The amount of people I've talked to about this project, interviews, um, I'm humming this song constantly now. Just it's because I've been working on this project
Never
and it's
gonna
such
give
a
you up,
catchy tune.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
never gonna give you up.
Yeah.
If you see me on the streets, I might be humming this like a crazy person.
You know what? I just saw it, by the way. I think this was so this is the Duke series you're talking about, right?
Hmm.
I read Roadrunner. I liked that one. That's the only one
Okay.
I've read because I like Joshua Clover. That's another academic that was inspiring. He was at Davis. I don't know if you ever crossed paths with his work.
Haven't met him, but there are some interesting writers that have been involved with this, so I'm excited
Yeah.
to hopefully be one of them. I read this Old Town Road one, and that's
Okay.
another good one.
But yeah, I was gonna say we watched a movie last night, and the trailer was for a Transformers movie, and um, the woman in the movie's getting to know the robot that she finds in her garage. Whatever. I just watched the trailer, so I didn't even see the movie. And in the trailer, she's like, you can listen to music to get inspired or something, and she puts a tape in the tape player, and it's Rick Astley, and like
Of course it is.
it rolls for a bit, and then he takes it out and throws it across the room and smashes it.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's like a
great.
great taste moment. You should write that down. Yeah.
I
It's
know,
a
I'm
great
writing it
it was a
down.
perfect example of sort of like the meaning of that song for so many people that it's like it signals so many things, including bad taste and terrible art and
Yeah.
trash basically, right?
Yeah. But it's been on such a journey and it's been connected to
What a
so many
journey.
different things at this point, between the joke, the
It's a
Rickroll, and
meme.
then,
It's the definition of isn't mimetic like isn't doesn't
yeah.
meme come from
Yes.
mimesis, right? Like
It's
it's the definition
it's a meme. Yeah,
of a bat of a ball of trash rolling, picking up more stuff, right? And
yes.
like, yeah,
Yes, it has all
yeah,
these commercial connotations. It's been
that's right.
connected to protests, online learning during the pandemic. It was an actual tool of online learning.
Whoa,
It's just amazing. And I just recently read in a moment that almost blew my mind
yeah,
that ChatGPT, because it studies how people use the internet, is now occasionally rickrolling people.
wow.
So the
To
internet is
ingratiate
folding,
itself with its users,
yes,
yeah,
it's folding in
wild,
on itself. And that broke my brain.
wild,
Anyways,
wild.
yeah, it's a fun topic and it's hitting a lot of my areas that I like. This
Oh,
how
that's
to,
great.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Maybe like final question or so. Talk to me quickly about your brass tacks writing practice. Like how often are you writing? What times of the day? What do you shoot for? Some people shoot for pages? I know it always changes, but do you have like a
Yes.
gold standard or a pattern you seem to do?
Do. I used to be a little more solid. You know, you have kids, I have kids. Now I have a puppy, which is very
Yeah,
disruptive. So I have goals that often get disrupted, but
yeah,
I prefer to write first thing in the morning. So normally I have to get kids going and there's things that have to happen. But I'm looking to write as soon as I can because I
yeah.
feel like I'm freshest right away. And I love to write with a drink. I'm a big advocate of writing with some sort of warm beverage, like a
Cool.
coffee or a tea,
Yeah,
depending on your heart conditions.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that sort of setup. I used to have to write out at a cafe or something. I needed the sound to kind of,
Hmm.
I don't know, but I have learned to write at home. But I need to be by a window. That's one of my things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't feel tra I don't know what that is. So I have these little tricks,
Yeah.
I think, of where I need to be and how I need to do it. But the morning is the best. I feel like it's a steady, like decline throughout the day,
Right.
how I am as a writer.
Me too. Yeah. Do you get
Yeah.
like, does it feel like 3-ish hours of time or
It
ish?
really depends on
It always
what
depends
happens.
what's
Yeah,
happening. Yeah,
what
yeah,
happens in the day.
yeah.
I could imagine a future where I have these set writing times.
Hmm.
But even then, don't you have those moments where you're being creative and then I don't know, something just comes up, you're just not flowing, you're getting frustrated, and that's when I try to go on a run or go on a walk or exercise. Sometimes there's just no point in forcing it. It's
I'm often talking to people on this podcast and just in general about ways the term tricking, I mean you just said trick back there, like that's one of your tricks or whatever. The term
yeah,
tricking oneself comes up a lot with writing music. And it's also, I don't love the word trick because I feel like trick, the implicit idea is that you're like fooling. Often tricks go negative is what I'm saying, right? Like if I tricked you by lying to you, then I tricked you. But I like the idea of setting up the conditions so we behave
yeah.
the way we want to behave,
hmm
whatever that
Optimum
is.
conditions.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so um, I'm right there with you, though. I think there are times if you're banging your head against the wall, you do need to close your computer and go for a run and mix it up
Yeah.
and reset or whatever. But I like, I guess the other thing that's always coming to mind with folks as I chat with them is the more you show up, the more you get done. So even if
Yeah.
you banged your head against the wall yesterday, you need to show up the next day and
Yes.
rinse and
And it's
repeat.
amazing how fresh it is. That's why I love the mornings. You know,
Yeah,
something that
I'm
I
with
could
you.
not see my way through the day before. And I was like, I should just give up on this. The next morning, all of a sudden,
Yep,
I've got all these ideas. I don't know
that's
where they
cool.
come from. Yeah, then
Hmm.
it's like a whole fresh start.
Hmm.
So, yeah. And sometimes just completely shutting off helps so much. I used to think I had to keep being productive at all times. When I was just out of graduate school and a
Yeah,
professor, I was constantly finding the things to work on.
yeah,
But I have since learned that sh a full shutdown and watching some comedy or doing
yeah,
something just dumb
yeah.
is a great reset and actually makes me better at what I'm doing the next
The
day.
full shutdown, the Lily
Yeah,
Hirsch full shutdown.
I advocate
I
the
would
full
like,
shutdown
yeah,
in
yeah,
whatever that means for you. And I'm
right.
advocating really things that I shouldn't. What I'm saying is like, do you need to watch a reality television show?
Yeah,
Is
just
that
like,
what's,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Go to the place
yeah,
that turns your brain off a bit.
uh-huh.
I have trouble with that actually, shutting down completely. Um, yeah, because it does kind of heal you up a bit. And I
Yeah.
still struggle with that when the summer comes for some reason because I'm like,
Oh,
I got all this free time and like, but I want to get stuff done. But I
right.
also know it's the time to recuperate.
Yeah, you
And
need
it's
both.
this
Might I
weird.
recommend Love Island?
Okay, there we go. That's the prescription. Perfect.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for talking with me. Is there anything else we should cover real quick or anything else that you're working on or that's been on your mind lately as a writer?
Um, not really. Just be kind to yourself. I do think the shutdown, it sounds like you need that reminder right now. You're in the
Mm,
summer, it's a time to be productive, but you don't always know what serious things you're processing, how you need to
mm,
recover. So
Being
if
kind
you
to yourself
can,
is
yeah,
also great advice. And many creative people I talk to have problems with that, being
yeah.
like proud of themselves or excited
Oh,
about their
yeah.
work. It's like the inner critic thing is so ridiculously intense for
Yes.
people that,
Oh, and that's real. I didn't mention that. I'm
sure.
probably sounding very confident. You've built me up with these nice compliments and I'm enjoying talking about
Tear
these fun
yourself down for
topics.
a second, real quick.
But I mean, in the reality is I love the process of writing, but I
Yeah.
hate sending it off. Once I'm
Oh,
done and
yeah.
it's going off and I don't know how it's going to be received. And I think that's part of the reason I like writing books because they take a while. I can live in this space for a year and just enjoy the process. I don't
Yeah.
have to send it off for a while.
Yeah.
With my little humor pieces, I send those off quick. I can get a very quick rejection. That's brutal. I
Mm.
love just living in the space of a book where I don't have to deal with that.
Delaying the
Yes.
reality of putting it
Yes.
out into the world and
Yes.
facing the facts. Yeah.
I think this is why Wagner wrote those really long operas. He's like, I don't need
I don't want to
the
show anybody
critics
this yet.
yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one more measure.
Yeah.
That's very true for the music world too. Yeah, that's something I'm trying to find more peace in by trying to engage with that second part of the process, the
Yeah.
post creation process,
Yeah.
and trying to find a way to accept it as a reality and
Yes.
move into it with a little bit more, I don't even know what the word is though, like willingness or more, a little bit more like peace that it exists. And
Yeah.
I do want to take part. So if I want to take
Yeah.
part and it exists, I want to feel a little bit more, um, I don't know what, yeah, peace is the best word, but I don't know. It doesn't make it any better. I don't know. It's
No,
hard.
but maybe just realizing that you can't control what's going to happen, but
Yeah,
you
that's it.
can realize that it doesn't actually have to impact your everyday. So just
I
this is
had
part
a,
of the process, but it
that's
doesn't
right.
have to
My
change
friend,
you.
my friend who I interviewed for this had a great thing that I just posted yesterday, actually, like a little snippet from our talk. And he was saying he talks to his brother a lot about what's the point of making this stuff, right? So, what's the point of writing another book? What's the point of doing a thing? Like, nobody has attention spans. Like, you can find 3,000 reasons to sort of give up. And he was saying,
Yes.
like, what a silly thing to do as we hurtle toward the grave. That was sort of what he
Yeah.
said. But then
Yeah.
then he kind of flipped it and says, well, think of all the worst things you could be doing as you hurtle toward the
Yes.
grave. So in fact, this is a perfect way to spend your time as we hurtle toward the grave,
I agree with that. It's like I feel like it is an inner compulsion
That's
and
right.
it
And
is
that's
kind of a
enough.
strange addiction, but there's
Hmm.
definitely worse things that you could be doing.
Bach has a cool quote, and I pull quotes from Bach. Who knows if he even said it, but I have it on my little bulletin board, which he said, I was obliged to be industrious.
Yeah.
That was his little
Yeah.
quote. That was his tweet or
I like
whatever.
that.
And it was
Yeah,
like
that was his tweet.
he just wanted to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He felt compelled. So
Yeah, I see that. And I do kind of think sometimes these things are kind of revolutionary in these. I mean, that sounds really over the top, but in this moment, in this political moment that's
yeah,
maybe not so conducive to or supportive of the arts, doing something that's like joyful and creative, there's something, I don't know, something good. I don't want to go too far with the word revolutionary, but something good about it.
I feel to get very new agey about it, you're putting, I mean, to behave in a way that is inhabiting curiosity, passion, self-expression, interest, positive, creativity, like to do that as a human being in the face of a dark situation, to be very new agey about it, it's like, you're putting that energy out into the
Yeah.
world. And that's way better than like curling up into a ball and letting
Yeah.
the black wave crash. So in my mind, like that is a perfect way to say it. It's like, it's a good thing to be doing in the midst
Yeah.
of everything else. Cause it's almost like, well, what are the other options?
Yeah.
It's pretty much like
Yeah.
the only other option is to curl up and not do anything or something. And
Yeah.
that's not fun.
No, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. Yeah. So,
Nice. Well, you are a very inspiring person. I love your
oh my goodness.
writing. I love your thinking. And it's a pleasure to chat with you. Thanks for taking the time.
That was so nice. Thank you so much for having me on. That was my head is so big. I don't know if I'm ever going to come down from this. Thank you.
Stay up there. Thank you.